Hello, young artist.
Hi.
What is perspective, you ask? Well, if I do my
I
job in
didn't
this
say that.
video, you'll have a solid knowledge of that.
Like, who are you?
Who am I? Well, I have a popular art channel on YouTube called Kazanjian M. Wait, you're not impressed? Fine, I'll tell you the truth about me then. I'm Batman.
Really?
Don't sound so surprised, kid. Artists usually have to have second jobs.
I just did your tutorial on Cartoon Block.
Anyway, let's get back to the lesson. Let's play some word association. When I say perspective, what do you think of? Alright, come on, focus. Railroad tracks. Just as I thought. You've been brainwashed. The good news is that you know a little bit about perspective. The bad news is that we're going to have to rewire your brain. Forget the train tracks. I have locomotives. I don't want you to just learn perspective. I want you to master it.
Wow.
From now on, I want you to think of perspective as a translation. But instead of a linguistic translation, such as English to Spanish, it's a spatial translation, between dimensions. What? Essentially, what you're doing when you draw from observation is to translate the three-dimensional world onto a flat, two-dimensional piece of paper. Wait, hold on, think about that. Perspective is translating three-dimensional objects which have height, width, and depth onto something that is flat, like a piece of paper. All perspective is a set of rules that make a visual translation. Alright, kid. Batman's got a rhetorical question for you. Are you a human, a bird, or a worm?
But why?
Listen, Y is the letter before Z, and this is an A, B, and C question. Just answer the question.
Uh-huh.
Tell you what, just for today's demonstration purposes, you're going to be D, all of the above. Now, watch closely. This is an example of worm's eye view. It's a bit different than the train tracks you drew in art class. What I want you to notice is the relationship between eye level and perspective. You can count your lucky stars that we're not starting off with the human view, standing up on train tracks. You might want to duck. Now, pay close attention after the scary man finishes celebrating and picks up the
Now
camera.
that's how you film a train.
Pay no attention to his socks and watch for the change in perspective. And freeze it. There, we have human eye perspective. Now there's one more vantage point that really throws our minds for a loop. When you're above looking down. The top-down perspective seems to be the most tangible and usually stays in our brain as an abstract image. I'll explain that in a second. But let's take a second to remember that there are multiple vantage points. And squared objects with parallel lines aren't going to be the only objects that we're going to have to translate. So now it's time for the brain surgery to begin. Are you excited?
Brain surgery?
Yeah, we have to make you more aware of the abstract. The word abstract has to do with our memories. It is a mental image of someone or something that has been built up over the course of our lives. Now understand this point. There are many great artists who can draw beautiful imagery from their heads, but that knowledge is gained through time and practice. This video is made for student artists, and what I want you to remember for the time being is, our abstracts are unreliable. Children's art is drawn almost entirely from the abstract, or mental images, and while it's true that children's motor skills have not fully developed, you'll notice that their imagery takes the simplest form of objects, such as train tracks from above, or fences from the side. By the time we're adults, we stop drawing, and simple compositions like this seem confusing. After teaching art for more than a decade, I've noticed a lot of things. One of my biggest observations is practically every student that I've ever taught has had ample motor skills. But learning to draw is more about teaching a person how to see, or in the case of perspective, how to translate the three-dimensional world onto a flat sheet of paper. In the next part of this series, we are going to dissect images. I'll teach you about vanishing point, and we'll describe the relationship between eye level and the horizon line. In part 2 of this series, you'll walk away with formulas on how to improve your perspective drawing. Alright, kid, so here's your homework.
Why?
Like I told you before, Y is my least favorite letter. Now I admit that this is probably not going to be the most fun assignment in the world, but it'll be very helpful for beginners at perspective. Did you know that a brick has 6 sides? Did you also know that you could only see 3 sides at once? Oh, and by the way, the reason that you're doing this is, if you could get the perspective of a brick, you could get the perspective of a building. Now do you see what I'm getting at? Your homework is to sketch a brick and to turn it into a building. If you wish, post your drawings as video responses to this video, and I'll try to comment on as many of those as I can. So I'll end with a friendly reminder to everybody. Do your homework!